I want to bring up this one topic. This is an interesting topic. I had a client call me on relative to the topic is he had basically called me and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And it was a doctor that was sending the patient over for an MRI. And he was telling the MRI center it was a cash patient. And you already know you get a deep discount when it's a cash patient, whether it's an MRI or X-rays versus what they normally bill. Now, if you don't know that, it's a dramatic deep discount. I mean, they can charge as much as $2,000-3,000 for an MRI, and as with when it's insurance, and as little as $300-600 cash. It's that much of a difference. Okay, and it's pretty much the same with X-rays. X-rays are just unbelievably inexpensive at an MRI center versus if they knew it was a personal injury patient. So the question is, hey, what do you think about sending the patient over to doing the MRI? Tell the MRI center that it's a cash patient, so they only charge $300. Then you send the bill to the attorney, like with an LOP, letter of protection. Then you send the bill to the attorney for $2,000, whatever the normal cost is that the X-ray center would do if there was insurance. Let's say they charge $2,000 or $3,000, and then you pocket the difference. So I hope you heard what I said. And so when he asked me that, of course, the first thing I'm going is legal. What's the legal parameter of that? And so here's the legal situation with that. If you're going to consider doing that, or if you're doing it, here's what is considered legal. Now you can do that, but legally, you're required to the additional money that you charge is supposed to be administrative fees. Now remember, there's a professional component. Okay, so you can come over and read the MRI and bill for a professional component. That's normal, right? That's not what we're talking about here. We're essentially talking about being a third party person involved here. We're talking about wholesale versus retail prices, essentially is what we're talking about. So is it legal? Well, it's only legal if the amount you charge corresponds with your standard administrative fees. And a good example or a good corollary is you can charge for Uber, like your patient's in an accident and they don't have a car. Well, you can use Uber, have Uber take them to your office and home. You pay for it, and then you can bill for it. Well, what's the rule with billing? It's not supposed to be a profit center. So same with the MRI. So if you wanted to pay $300 cash, could you turn around and charge $2,000 or $3,000? Well, you better be able to justify it that is the normal and standard cost for your administrative services. That's what they're going to look at. Same with Uber. You can't get a $40 Uber ride and go, I'm going to charge $200. Now it's a profit center. It's not administrative fees. And you're the one, when you get accused of it, you're the one that has to support it. And here's what will happen. It will not be your opinion. That's not how it'll go down. They'll pull your records like a forensic file. They'll do a forensic accounting with your accounting, and they will value your administrative fees. That's how they'll know. They'll go, well, here's your real overhead administrative fees relative to your overhead. And that is the range. So you could be a little outside of that administrative fee range, right? Let's say you do 300 and you want to go charge $350 or say 400 administrative fees. You'd get away with that probably, okay? Because your administrative fees would be in that range. But are they most likely going to be in a range of $3,000? No. I mean, I know just from running chiropractic offices, you're not going to have that kind of administrative fee. Same with the Uber ride. You have to be able to justify. So it can't get, I guess what I'm saying is there are rules and regulations to this. And that's the rule, that's the legal rule. It has to be associated. You have to be able to justify it with your administrative fees. And by the way, it's the exact same thing with a cash discount. The amount of discount, if that's what you're going to use for discount. That's why we don't use cash discount. We use a hardship discount because the cash discount is the same rules. You're only supposed to discount that patient for the time of service discount that's relative to your administrative fees that you're saving. See? So just take that for what it's worth. And then it'll be it won't just be your word versus their word. They'll come in. If you actually ever get charged with this, they'll do a forensic accounting to find your true administrative fee cost. And then they'll apply that to what you did charge. And then you have to answer that to a jury. That's how that works relative to fraud. Okay. So you may not have known that. You may be familiar with it. You may be doing it. I just want to let you know that's the true interpretation of fraud relative to billing the MRI, Uber, cash discount, but mainly we're talking about overbilling for the MRI as a profit center. Okay. Any questions about that?
So how do you incorporate the Uber? I had a patient that we paid $10 each way for a taxi, and we kept the receipts. How do you do that other than tell the attorney, hey, listen, there's $400 outstanding for ride
Well,
fees?
it's real easy, but number one, the first thing you need to be aware of is never give the patient money. Even if you're keeping the receipts, never. That automatically, I mean, you're looking at fraud. That just doesn't look good to anybody.
Yeah, we paid the cab. When the cab brought her, I gave him the
Okay.
$10. So I mean, literally,
Yeah,
when she came,
I
yeah,
actually had a chiropractor call me and say he was actually charged with fraud, and that's what he did. He paid the patient the cab ride. So he was allowed to do it, but here's what they called it. They called it enticement. They go, well, you're enticed, you're essentially paying the patient to come see you. And that's true. And you go in front of a jury, go ahead and try to defend that one. So never give the patient the money, and it's too easy. All you do is set up the account. Now they have business accounts with Uber. All you do is set up the account with Uber, and for that particular person, just it goes to you. You just pay Uber through your credit card. Your staff member sets it up and does it all. And then you got the Uber receipts. That's just too easy. Now you do have a little bit more of an administrative issue because your staff member has to do the Uber calling as opposed to the patient. But even if the patient did it, you just need to get the receipt from the patient. In other words, the patient did it with their own credit card and they called on Uber. So you still want to get it, but that's not how I would do it. I don't want anything looking fishy. I'm like, no, this appointment time is at this time. I'm going to let the patient know it's at this time. We're having the Uber pick them up, whatever time period before. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to have my staff member call the patient, say, hey, we're sending Uber. I'm going to make sure we're going to confirm it. I'll just have my patient call, say, hey, we're confirming Uber's getting ready to come over. Just to make sure, they're there and they're aware of it and they're not missing and all that kind of stuff. And then it's going on our credit card on file with Uber. So that's how the patient comes to us and that's how the patient goes back. And we got the receipt directly from Uber. No money is going through the patient's hands. But that's too easy right now. Back in the day before Uber, that's when doctors actually hired, had their own vehicle and go pick up the patient. And that was a whole nother nightmare.
Paul, what do you do for what's your administrative charge on an Uber?
Here's the rule. It has to correspond closely to what your administrative fees would naturally be. So you just have to think to yourself and go, what administrative fee would I put on it? Well, and then you go, well, if I did X amount, when would a red light go off? So if I was doing Uber and I added, 10, 15, no more than 20% for administrative fee, that would be very easy to appropriate, and that wouldn't put off any red bells if it was only right? If I only added 20%. But you add 100, 150%, 200, 300%, you're gonna have red flags going off. So it's and the administrative fee has to do with your administrative fee. It's not a third party administrative fee. In other words, if you actually had a 300% increase with your administrative fees and you could show it, then you're no problem. But you're already in a big problem if you got 300% administrative fees. You already got a huge business problem, because that's not reality. I mean, you got some serious overhead problems. So, but that's how it's evaluated. I just want you to know, they'll say administrative fees got to be associated with your administrative. What would your administrative fees to be? And you go, well, who says that? Well, they'll hire a forensic consultant to come in and look at your administrative fees. That's what they'll do. If you've ever been charged with fraud, that's what they'll do. So, but I always say, use common sense. If you added 5% more, would that be a red flag? No. 10% more? No. 15? Not really. I wouldn't go past 20. Just from common sense. Any other questions about that? Okay, we're going to keep on this path with the diagnoses and the anatomy and the supportive diagnostic tests for the next. This might take 2 or 3 sessions to get through, but I think it'll be worth doing. And then what I'm going to do is, after I'm recording it, and then after I record it, I'll have it transcribed and clean it up so you can associate the findings. Excuse me, man. All right.
So last question, Paul. I guess the bow on the whole thing would be the diagnosis codes that this would lead to.